Imagine standing in a city built 4,500 years ago. The streets stretch before you in perfect right angles, forming blocks so uniform they could have been planned by modern architects. Water flows through an intricate network of covered drains beneath your feet, a sanitation system more sophisticated than anything medieval Europe would achieve 3,000 years later. The bricks surrounding you are standardized to exact proportions, fired in kilns with precision that speaks of centralized quality control. Indoor plumbing channels wastewater from private bathrooms into the main sewers below. Now imagine this: no palaces tower over the city. No monuments glorify kings. No fortifications prepare for war. No temples dominate the skyline with the faces of gods. This is not science fiction. This is the Indus Valley Civilization. Between roughly 3,300 BCE and 1300 BCE, across what is now Pakistan, northwest India, and parts of Afghanistan, a civilization flourished that was contemporary with ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. At its height around 2600 to 1900 BCE, it covered an area larger than either, nearly 500,000 square miles, making it the most extensive of the ancient world's first urban cultures. Yet for millennia the world forgot it existed. No ancient texts spoke of it. No legends preserved its memory. The people who built these remarkable cities left behind an undeciphered script that guards their secrets still. When their cities fell silent, they vanished so completely that even their neighbors seemed to lose all recollection of them. The questions surrounding this lost world are as numerous as the brick-lined streets of Mohenjo-daro. Who were these people? How did they achieve such extraordinary urban planning without the centralized authority visible in other ancient civilizations? What do their mysterious seals and undeciphered symbols mean? Why did they build elaborate public baths but no pyramids or ziggurats? Where are their weapons of war, their monuments to conquest, their kings entombed in glory? And perhaps most haunting of all, how does a civilization of this magnitude, spanning hundreds of settlements, housing perhaps 5 million people at its peak, simply disappear? For the next couple of minutes, we're going to journey into one of archaeology's greatest enigmas. We'll walk the precisely planned streets of the world's first true metropolises. We'll examine the innovations that made this culture unique. We'll explore the mysteries that continue to baffle scholars, and we'll investigate the theories behind one of history's most perplexing disappearances. This is the story of the Indus Valley Civilization, a culture so advanced it engineered perfection, then vanished without a trace. The rise from villages to metropolis. To understand how the Indus Valley Civilization achieved what it did, we must first travel back even further, to a time when the Indus and its tributaries nourished small farming communities across the plains of South Asia. Around 7000 BCE, long before the great cities rose, people in this region were already cultivating barley and wheat, domesticating cattle, sheep, and goats. These early inhabitants lived in modest settlements, their homes built from mud brick, their lives governed by the rhythms of agriculture and the seasonal flooding of rivers. But something remarkable happened here between approximately 3300 and 2600 BCE, a period archaeologists call the early Harappan or regionalization era. These scattered villages began to transform. Population grew. Trade expanded. Technology advanced. The potter's wheel appeared. Copper tools became more sophisticated. Standardization began to emerge in craft production. The settlements of Kot Diji, Omri, and Kalibangan from this period show us the foundation being laid. We see the first hints of urban planning, streets beginning to align, buildings constructed with more uniformity, defensive walls appearing around some settlements. These weren't yet the magnificent cities we'll explore, but they were the chrysalis from which something unprecedented would emerge. Trade networks were expanding dramatically. Lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, turquoise from Iran, shells from the coast. Materials were moving across vast distances, suggesting not just commerce but communication, shared cultural ideas, and perhaps the beginnings of a common identity. Then, around 2600 BCE, comes what archaeologists call the mature Harappan or integration era, and everything changes. What happened during this transformation remains one of the civilization's mysteries. Unlike other ancient cultures where we can trace the rise of powerful rulers who unified regions through conquest or religious authority, the Indus Valley seems to have urbanized through a different process entirely. There are no king lists, no conquest narratives carved into stone, no monuments to victorious battles. Instead, we see something that looks almost like consensus. Across hundreds of miles, cities began to emerge with astonishing similarity. Harappa in the Punjab. Mohenjo-daro in Sindh, over 350 miles to the south. Dholavira in Gujarat. Ganariwala. Rakhigarhi in Haryana, which recent excavations suggest may have been even larger than Mohenjo-daro. All of them, separated by vast distances, yet all built according to strikingly uniform principles. The same standardized brick ratios, 1 to 2 to 4. The same oriented street grids. The same sophisticated drainage systems. The same weights and measures. The same style of seals, pottery, and urban organization. How does this happen without centralized political control? How do you achieve such uniformity across such distances without an emperor issuing decrees, an administrative capital dictating standards, or a religious authority demanding conformity? This question will echo throughout our exploration because it reveals something fundamental about the Indus Valley Civilization. It was organized but not as we typically understand ancient organization. By 2500 BCE, the civilization had reached its mature form. From the Arabian Sea coast to the foothills of the Himalayas, from eastern Iran to western India, Harappan culture united an enormous territory. The Indus River and its tributaries, including the now dry Gagar-Hakra river system, which many scholars identify with the ancient Sarasvati River mentioned in Vedic texts, provided the arteries for this civilization's lifeblood. But unlike Egypt, which owed everything to the predictable flooding of the Nile, or Mesopotamia, which fought constant battles with the unpredictable Tigris and Euphrates, the Indus Valley people seem to have achieved a remarkable equilibrium with their environment. The monsoon rains came with seasonal reliability. The rivers flooded, depositing fertile silt across the plains. Forests covered regions now barren. Wildlife, including elephants, rhinoceros, and tigers, roamed lands that would later become desert. The climate was wetter, greener, more hospitable than what exists today. And into this landscape the Harappans built their cities. Perfect cities, the engineering marvel. Let's step into Mohenjo-daro at its height, around 2300 BCE. The city awakens before dawn. In the workers' quarters of the lower city, families stir in their modest but well-constructed homes. The wealthy rise in larger houses on the citadel mound, multi-story residences with interior courtyards, private wells, and bathing platforms that drain into the city's covered sewers. As the sun climbs, you walk onto one of the main thoroughfares. The street is perfectly straight, running north to south, wide enough for 2 carts to pass comfortably. It measures roughly 33 feet across, and every major street in the city adheres to this same width. The smaller lanes that branch off at precise right angles measure exactly half that. This isn't accidental. This is deliberate urban planning on a scale not seen before in human history. Look down. The street surface is hard-packed earth, but notice the covered drains running along both sides. These aren't simple ditches. They're sophisticated brick-lined channels with removable stone covers for maintenance access. At intervals, you see manholes where workers can descend to clear blockages. The gradient is calculated precisely so wastewater flows toward larger collection drains, eventually exiting the city. Stand beside one of the houses and observe. A ceramic pipe extends from inside the dwelling, carrying wastewater from a private bathroom through the wall and into the street drain below. The house itself is constructed from those standardized bricks, each one measuring approximately 7 inches by 14 inches by 28 inches, that perfect 1 to 2 to 4 ratio that appears in every structure, in every city, across the entire civilization. Who enforced the standardization? How did every brick maker across hundreds of miles know to produce precisely the same dimensions? There are no surviving written building codes, no administrative records detailing regulations. Yet the consistency is undeniable. The houses themselves reveal careful architectural thought. Most are built around central courtyards, providing privacy, natural light, and ventilation. The windowless outer walls face the street, keeping dust, noise, and the public eye at bay. Rooms are arranged according to function. Storage areas sit near entryways. Living spaces cluster around courtyards. Bathrooms and wells occupy designated areas where drainage can be properly managed. Some houses have staircases indicating second stories, though these upper levels have long since collapsed. Evidence suggests they may have been even more common than surviving staircases indicate, with wooden stairs that left no trace. The larger residences could have housed extended families or perhaps wealthy merchants. But here's what's striking: even the grandest houses aren't that grand. There are no palaces, no sprawling estates with hundreds of rooms. The difference between the wealthiest and poorest residences is notable but not extreme. Nothing like the vast gulf between Egyptian pharaohs and peasants, or Mesopotamian kings and subjects. This pattern of relative egalitarianism, or at least less visible hierarchy, appears throughout the archaeological record. We'll return to this puzzle shortly. Step back and view Mohenjo-daro from above. The city is divided into two main areas, a raised citadel mound to the west and a lower city to the east. This same pattern appears at Harappa and several other major sites. But unlike other ancient civilizations, these citadels aren't dominated by royal residences or massive temples. Instead, we find something unique. The Great Bath of Mohenjo-daro is perhaps the most iconic structure of Indus Valley archaeology. This watertight pool measures roughly 39 feet long, 23 feet wide, and 8 feet deep. It's constructed with precisely fitted bricks, sealed with bitumen, natural tar, to prevent leakage. Steps descend into the bath from both ends. Surrounding it are corridors, small rooms, and what appear to be changing areas. The engineering is remarkable. The floor slopes slightly toward a corner drain that channels used water into a covered drain leading out of the structure. Fresh water came from a well in an adjacent room. The entire complex speaks of careful maintenance and regular use. But use for what? The bath's purpose remains debated, but most scholars believe it served a ritual or ceremonial function. The private bathing platforms in individual houses suggest this wasn't merely for washing. The careful construction, prominent location on the citadel, and surrounding structures point to public significance. Perhaps religious purification, community ceremonies, or rituals we can no longer reconstruct. What we do know is this: the Harappans valued water, cleanliness, and public infrastructure in ways that set them apart from their contemporaries. At Dholavira, located on an island in what is now the Great Rann of Kutch, the sophistication of water management reaches even greater heights. This city was built in one of the harshest environments occupied by the Harappans, an arid region where water was life itself. The residents of Dholavira responded with ingenuity. They constructed massive reservoirs to capture and store rainwater. The city has 16 water tanks, some enormous, carved into rock and lined with brick. These reservoirs could hold millions of liters, sustaining the population through dry seasons. The city is divided into three distinct sectors: a citadel, middle town, and lower town, each separated by walls but connected through gateways. The planning is even more rigid than Mohenjo-daro. Perfect rectangles, precise measurements, geometric harmony. And then there's the signboard. Archaeologists discovered something unprecedented at Dholavira: a large wooden signboard, now decayed but leaving clear evidence of its existence. It contained 10 large symbols from the Indus script, each approximately 15 inches high. This sign was mounted above the northern gateway to the city, visible to all who entered. What did it say? We don't know. But its existence tells us something crucial. The Harappans used their script publicly, perhaps for identification, proclamation, or declaration. This was communication meant to be seen, read, and understood by a literate, or at least symbol-recognizing, public. Harappa itself, the civilization's namesake site, discovered in the 1920s by British archaeologist John Marshall and Indian archaeologist Daya Ram Sani, presents yet another masterpiece of urban planning. The site shows evidence of continuous occupation and rebuilding over centuries. The city expanded, contracted, and transformed, yet always maintaining those core principles of grid planning, standardized construction, and sophisticated drainage. Here, archaeologists have identified granaries, large platforms that may have stored grain, though this interpretation is debated. They've found working areas where craftsmen produced beads, pottery, and metal tools. They've uncovered cemeteries that reveal burial practices. Both cremation and inhumation were practiced, with bodies often accompanied by pottery vessels, jewelry, and other goods for the afterlife. The cemetery R37 at Harappa is particularly revealing. The graves show variety but not extreme differentiation in burial wealth. Some individuals were interred with elaborate pottery and jewelry, others with simpler offerings. But again, we see no royal burials, no tomb packed with gold like Tutankhamun's, no warrior buried with arsenals of weapons, no priestess surrounded by religious treasures. Even in death, the Harappans maintained their peculiar egalitarianism. Recent excavations at Rakhigarhi in Haryana have revolutionized our understanding of the civilization's scale. This site may have been even larger than Mohenjo-daro, covering more than 550 acres at its height. Discoveries here include residential areas, drainage systems, metallurgy workshops, and, crucially, human remains that have provided the first ancient DNA from Harappan individuals. That DNA analysis, published in 2019, has offered tantalizing insights. The Harappans were a distinct South Asian population with ancestry from ancient Iranian farmers and Southeast Asian hunter-gatherers. They were genetically different from the steppe pastoralists who would migrate into the region in later periods. This genetic evidence helps us understand the Harappans as an indigenous South Asian civilization with deep local roots. And then there's Lothal, the maritime jewel of the Harappan world. Located in Gujarat, Lothal gives us something no other site does: clear evidence of maritime trade infrastructure. The city features what many scholars identify as an ancient dockyard, a rectangular basin connected to an ancient course of the Sabarmati River. This dock could accommodate ships, allowing goods to be loaded and unloaded protected from tides and currents. Imagine standing at this port in 2300 BCE. Ships arrive from the Persian Gulf, carrying goods from Mesopotamia, precious stones, metals, textiles. Harappan merchants inspect Mesopotamian cuneiform tablets that mention goods from Meluhha, a land most scholars now believe refers to the Indus region. In exchange, the ships load Harappan exports: carnelian beads, ivory objects, cotton textiles, timber, and that most precious commodity, the ability to trade with other networks extending further east and south. The Harappans weren't isolated. They were active participants in the Bronze Age world system, trading with cultures thousands of miles away. But let's return to that central question that has been building throughout this chapter. How did they organize all of this? The uniformity across the Indus Valley Civilization is almost eerie. The same brick sizes, the same script symbols on seals, the same weights, precisely graduated in a decimal system, the same pottery styles, the same city planning principles applied across hundreds of settlements spanning thousands of square miles. In Egypt, we know the pharaohs commanded. In Mesopotamia, we know the kings and temple priests organized. But in the Indus Valley, we have no faces of rulers, no monuments to conquest, no identifiable temples to all-powerful gods, no written laws or administrative archives. Yet somehow, they achieved coordination that other civilizations needed centralized authority to accomplish. The answer may lie in those small square seals we keep glimpsing. But to understand them, we need to examine the society, economy, and innovations that made this civilization work. What we're about to discover will only deepen the mystery. Society, economy, and innovations. Pick up a Harappan seal, and you hold in your hand a compact masterpiece of ancient technology and art. These seals, typically square about 1 inch across, carved from steatite or other soft stones, are among the most numerous and distinctive artifacts the civilization produced. Thousands have been discovered across Indus sites and even at distant locations in Mesopotamia where Harappan traders ventured. Each seal is carved in reverse, creating a raised image that would print onto clay or other soft materials. The craftsmanship is extraordinary. Using copper tools and possibly a bow drill, ancient artisans created intricate designs. Animals rendered with remarkable anatomical accuracy, mythical creatures combining features of different beasts, and above or around these images, inscriptions in that undeciphered Indus script. The animals depicted reveal the Harappan world's biodiversity. Zebu bulls with their distinctive humped backs, elephants, tigers, water buffalo, rhinoceros, crocodiles, and most enigmatically, the unicorn, a creature shown in profile with a single horn, possibly representing some now extinct bovine species or perhaps a stylized representation of a two-horned animal seen from the side. But what were these seals for? The most likely answer: economic transactions and identification. A merchant could seal a package of goods, impressing his unique mark into clay while the shipment was tied. That seal acted as both lock and signature. Any tampering would break the seal, revealing theft or unauthorized access. The inscriptions might identify the owner, the contents, the destination, or all three. Some seals have been found with perforated backs, suggesting they were worn as amulets or badges of office. Others show signs of extensive use, with worn surfaces indicating decades of repeated stamping. The discovery of Indus seals in Mesopotamian cities, including Ur, Kish, and Tel Asmar, confirms active trade between these civilizations. Cuneiform texts from the Akkadian and Ur-3 periods mention Meluhha, describing it as a land of valuable goods. The trade items mentioned match what we know the Harappans produced: carnelian and other semi-precious stones, timber, ivory, possibly cotton. This marks one of history's earliest examples of long-distance maritime trade networks. Harappan merchants or their intermediaries were crossing the Arabian Sea, sailing through the Persian Gulf, and conducting business in cities where a completely different writing system, culture, and political organization prevailed. Let's visit one of those workshops, a bead-making facility at Mohenjo-daro or Lothal. The Harappans were master bead makers, producing ornaments in materials ranging from common clay to precious stones. Carnelian beads required particular skill. The stone had to be carefully shaped, drilled with remarkable precision using copper or stone drill bits, then heated in controlled conditions to achieve the distinctive red-orange color Harappan beads are famous for. Archaeological evidence shows us the entire production sequence. Raw carnelian nodules were broken into smaller pieces. These were roughly shaped by chipping. Then came the crucial drilling process, creating holes through hard stone using technology that required both skill and patience. The beads were then heated, polished, and finished. Analysis of the drill holes reveals fascinating technical details. The Harappans used a technique called double cone drilling, starting from both ends of the bead and meeting in the middle. The precision required is extraordinary. A single mistake could shatter the stone, wasting hours or days of work. These beads weren't merely decorative. They were trade goods, status symbols, and possibly ritual objects. Long necklaces of carefully graduated beads appear in burial contexts. The standardization of bead sizes and shapes suggests systematic production. But once again we see quality control without obvious centralized supervision. Pottery production was equally sophisticated. The Harappans produced a characteristic red pottery often decorated with black painted designs, geometric patterns, plant motifs, animal figures. The pottery was wheel-made, with standardized vessel shapes that appear across the civilization. Storage jars, cooking pots, serving dishes, water vessels, each type had its standard form. Metalworking advanced significantly during the mature Harappan period. Copper and bronze were worked into tools, weapons, vessels, and ornaments. The famous bronze dancing girl statuette from Mohenjo-daro, a figure standing in a confident pose, wearing bangles on one arm, her hair tied back, demonstrates the lost wax casting technique. The artisan created a wax model, covered it in clay, melted out the wax and poured molten metal into the cavity. The result is a sculpture of remarkable naturalism and personality. But look at what's missing. We have remarkably few metal weapons compared to other Bronze Age civilizations. Some copper axes, spears, and arrowheads exist, but nothing like the arsenals found in Mesopotamian palaces or Mycenaean fortresses. No swords, no extensive armor, no clear evidence of warfare as a central societal activity. This absence has sparked intense debate. Were the Harappans peaceful? Did they fight wars using weapons that didn't survive? Wood, for instance? Or did their society organize itself around different values than the conquest-focused kingdoms of their neighbors? Now examine these small cubes and cylinders made from chert and other stones. These are Harappan weights, and they reveal something profound about this civilization's organization. The weights follow a precise decimal system. The smallest unit is approximately 0.856 grams, and every other weight is a multiple of this base unit. We find weights of 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and 64 times the base unit. The largest weights reach hundreds of units. This wasn't casual measurement. This was systematic standardization across the entire civilization. A merchant in Harappa could trade with a merchant in Lathal, 700 miles away, and both would use precisely the same measurement standards. No conversion needed. No confusion about values. Compare this to medieval Europe, where every town might have different measurement standards, leading to constant disputes and fraud. The Harappans solved this problem 4,500 years ago through cultural standardization that operated without, as far as we can tell, any central authority enforcing it. Stand in a Harappan marketplace and observe economic life in action. The scene is surprisingly modern in some ways. Merchants display goods in stalls or shops. Customers examine pottery, textiles, jewelry, tools. Weights are carefully used to measure grain, metals, precious stones. Seals authenticate packages and transactions. But notice what we can't reconstruct with confidence: the exact nature of currency. Did the Harappans use coins? We found no evidence of coin money. Did they use standardized items as currency, shells, beads, metal pieces? Possibly. Did they operate on credit and trust within a complex web of social obligations? We simply don't know. Some scholars suggest the seals themselves might have functioned as tokens of credit or obligation, with the inscriptions recording debts or agreements. Others propose a temple and palace economy like in Mesopotamia, where centralized institutions managed redistribution of goods. But this doesn't fit the archaeological evidence, which shows no obvious central storage facilities or administrative centers. The civilization's artistic production offers glimpses into daily life and perhaps belief systems. Clay figurines are common finds, Female figures often associated with fertility or mother goddess concepts, though this interpretation is debated. Animal figurines including cattle, dogs, and birds, wheeled toys suggesting children at play, models of carts identical to ones still used in rural South Asia today. The female figurines are particularly interesting. Many wear elaborate headdresses, jewelry, and sometimes hold small objects. Early archaeologists called these mother goddess figures and assumed they represented religious worship. More recent scholars urge caution. These might be toys, votives, decorative objects, or representations of human women rather than deities. We simply don't know enough about Harappan religious practices to be certain. And that brings us to one of the civilization's most perplexing absences. Where are the temples? In Egypt, temples dominated the landscape, massive complexes serving as religious, economic, and administrative centers. In Mesopotamia, ziggurats towered over cities, linking earth to the heavens. In both civilizations we can identify religious buildings, priest quarters, offering tables, religious artwork on monumental scale. In the Indus Valley? Ambiguity. The Great Bath at Mohenjo-daro might have served ritual purposes. Some structures at various sites have been tentatively identified as possible temples or fire altars. Seals show possible religious imagery, figures in meditative poses, processions, confrontations between humans and animals, mythical beasts. The famous Pashupati seal from Mohenjo-daro shows a horned figure seated in what might be a yogic posture, surrounded by animals. Some scholars see this as a proto-Shiva figure, linking it to later Hindu traditions. Others warn against reading later religious concepts back into ambiguous archaeological evidence. What we can say with more confidence: the Harappans didn't build the kind of monumental religious architecture we see in other ancient civilizations. Either their religious practices were more private and domestic, their ritual spaces were constructed from perishable materials that didn't survive, or their belief systems were fundamentally different from the temple-focused religions of their neighbors. Let's attempt a portrait of Harappan society, acknowledging the limitations of our knowledge. The population was diverse, as DNA evidence from Rakhigarhi and anthropological studies of skeletal remains indicate. Diet varied by region but typically included wheat, barley, rice in some areas, lentils and other pulses. Animal protein came from cattle, sheep, goats, fish and fowl. Evidence of domesticated chickens appears. The Harappans may have been among the first to domesticate jungle fowl. Clothing likely included cotton textiles. The Indus Valley Civilization appears to have been among the first to cultivate and weave cotton, a revolutionary development in human material culture. Fragments of cotton fabric have been preserved through mineralization on metal objects at Mohenjo-daro. Social hierarchy existed but wasn't extreme or apparently enforced through violence. House sizes varied, suggesting economic differences. Burial goods varied, suggesting some individuals or families had more wealth. But the differences are modest compared to other contemporary civilizations. One theory suggests a society organized by occupational guilds or lineages, groups of craftsmen, merchants, farmers, and other specialists maintaining their own standards and traditions without need for royal supervision. The standardization we see might reflect professional pride and intergroup cooperation rather than top-down enforcement. Another theory proposes council-based governance, assemblies of elders or representatives making collective decisions, similar to republics in later ancient history. No single king but rather distributed authority. A third possibility: religious authority without the monumental expression we associate with it. Perhaps priests or ritual specialists held significant social power but expressed it through knowledge, ritual performance, and community consensus rather than palaces and monuments. Or perhaps the answer lies in those inscriptions we cannot read. The Indus script appears on at least 4,000 artifacts, mostly seals but also on pottery, tools, and other objects. The script consists of roughly 400 to 500 distinct symbols, though many appear very rarely. Most inscriptions are short, typically only 5 symbols, though some reach up to 17. Is it even writing? Some scholars argue it's a writing system recording language. Others suggest it might be a symbolic system for recording economic or religious information without representing spoken language. More like heraldic symbols than true writing. The debate continues. Attempts to decipher the script have produced numerous theories but no consensus. We lack a bilingual inscription, like the Rosetta Stone that unlocked Egyptian hieroglyphics. We lack extensive texts that would reveal grammatical patterns. We don't even know what language or languages the Harappans spoke, though current theories favor a Dravidian language related to those still spoken in South India. Until the script is deciphered, If it can be, we're reading the Harappan civilization through archaeology alone, interpreting material remains without the clarifying voice of their own words. And so we're left with a civilization that achieved extraordinary sophistication through methods we still struggle to understand. A culture that standardized across vast distances without obvious coercion. That built cities of remarkable uniformity without kings proclaiming their authority. That traded across oceans and continents yet left no written accounts of their adventures. The mystery deepens with every discovery. And the greatest mysteries are still to come. Mysteries and enigmas. Let's gather the enigmas that have been accumulating throughout our journey. Because the more we learn about the Indus Valley Civilization, the more questions emerge from the archaeological layers. Mystery number 1, the undeciphered script. We've touched on this already, but let's examine it more deeply. Over 90 years have passed since the discovery of the civilization, decades since scholars began serious attempts at decipherment, yet the Indus script remains silent. The problem isn't lack of effort. Linguists, archaeologists, computer scientists, and cryptographers have attacked it from every angle. Statistical analysis, pattern recognition, comparison with later scripts from the Indian subcontinent, computer modeling, machine learning algorithms. Some patterns have emerged. The script typically reads from right to left, as evidenced by sign crowding on the left edges of seals. Certain symbols frequently appear in specific positions. Some prefer the start of inscriptions, others the end. Some signs occur commonly, others are rare. This suggests structure and grammar, hallmarks of a true writing system. But structure alone doesn't give us meaning. Multiple decipherment claims have been made. Some scholars have read the inscriptions as early Dravidian languages. Others as Indo-Aryan. Still others as Sumerian-related languages or isolated tongues with no surviving descendants. Each theory finds patterns that seem promising, but none has gained widespread acceptance because none can be definitively proven. The brevity of most inscriptions compounds the problem. 5 symbols simply don't provide enough context to triangulate meaning. If we had extensive texts, histories, laws, religious scriptures, administrative records, the statistical patterns would become clearer. Instead, we have what might be equivalent to business cards and shipping labels. Some scholars have suggested the script wasn't meant to record full language but instead served as a mnemonic device. Symbols that would trigger specific meanings for those who already knew what they represented, like religious symbols or clan markers. If true, this would explain both the short inscriptions and the difficulty of decipherment. Others maintain it is true writing and point to comparable scripts that use few symbols extensively, ancient Chinese for instance, which could create complex meanings from relatively compact inscriptions. Until someone discovers a longer text, a bilingual inscription, or develops a breakthrough methodology, the script keeps its secrets. And with it, the voices of the people remain forever out of reach. Mystery number 2, the missing monuments. Stand before the Great Pyramid of Giza, and you stand before the ego of a king made stone. Walk through Persepolis and you walk through the power fantasies of Persian emperors. Read the steles of Mesopotamian rulers, and you read endless boasts of conquest, divine favor, and eternal glory. The ancient world was built by rulers who wanted to be remembered, who needed everyone living and dead to know their names, their deeds, their might. Where are the Indus Valley's monuments to power? We have large structures, certainly. The citadels, the Great Bath, platform mounds that supported significant buildings. But nothing that screams, I am the king and you are nothing. No colossal statues. No palaces sprawling across acres with throne rooms and receiving halls. No tombs packed with treasure. No victory monuments recording battles. No royal portraits or inscriptions proclaiming divine kingship. Even the residential differences are muted. Yes, some houses are larger than others. Yes, the citadel areas might have housed elites. But the gap between rich and poor, powerful and weak, seems far narrower than in contemporaneous civilizations. What does this mean? Option 1. The evidence hasn't survived. Perhaps Harappan rulers expressed their power through perishable materials, elaborate wooden palaces that rotted away, textile displays that disintegrated, religious performances that left no trace. Archaeological absence doesn't always equal historical absence. Option 2. Power was organized differently. Maybe the civilization was governed by councils, assemblies, or rotating leadership where no single individual accumulated enough power to build monuments. Some scholars point to later Indian traditions of republican governments, the Gasagas mentioned in early Buddhist and Jain texts, as possible echoes of Harappan political organization. Option 3. Religious or philosophical values discouraged displays of power. Perhaps Harappan belief systems emphasized humility, equality, or spiritual principles that made monument building seem inappropriate or even blasphemous. Option 4. The civilization was controlled by a dispersed elite, merchant families, craft guilds, priestly lineages, who competed and cooperated but never allowed single rulers to emerge. Economic power without political centralization. We don't know. And that not knowing is itself revealing. It tells us the Harappans successfully built and maintained a complex civilization for centuries using social technologies different from those we're familiar with from studying Egypt, Mesopotamia, China, or the Americas. They found another way. And then they lost it, or it was lost, before they could tell us what it was. Mystery number 3, the bathing obsession. Private bathing platforms in houses. The Great Bath. Elaborate well systems. Sophisticated drainage. The Harappans were clearly preoccupied with water and cleanliness in ways their neighbors weren't. What? Practical hygiene explains some of it. In a hot climate, regular bathing is sensible. Proper drainage prevents disease. But the Harappans went far beyond mere practicality. They invested enormous resources, labor, materials, planning, into water infrastructure. We know children existed. The toy carts, small figurines, and evidence of child-sized items tell us that. But their treatment in death remains another gap in our knowledge. Mystery 7. The cultural continuity question. How much of later South Asian culture derives from the Harappans? This question has political, cultural, and scholarly dimensions that sometimes conflict. Some scholars see clear continuities, the emphasis on bathing and purification in later Hindu practice, the possible proto-Shiva figure, the use of certain symbols like the peepal leaf and the swastika that appear in Harappan contexts and later Hindu iconography, the layout of some Harappan structures that might prefigure later temple plans, urban planning principles that might have influenced later Indian cities. Others urge caution about reading later practices backward into ambiguous archaeological evidence. Symbols can mean different things in different contexts. Convergent evolution of ideas can occur. Apparent continuities might be coincidental. The genetic evidence from Rakhigarhi adds another dimension. The Harappans were genetically distinct from the steppe pastoralists who entered South Asia during and after the Harappan decline. Modern South Asians have ancestry from both groups, but the proportion varies by region and population. This suggests a complex picture. Harappan populations didn't vanish genetically, they're ancestors of modern South Asians. But their culture transformed dramatically through interaction with incoming populations and through internal changes. How much was lost? How much was preserved in modified form? How much was reinterpreted by later peoples? We're still sorting out these questions. These mysteries define the Indus Valley Civilization. Each discovery answers some questions while opening others. Each artifact we uncover gives us new data while revealing how much we still don't know. But perhaps the greatest mystery of all is still to come. Why did it end? How does a civilization of this sophistication, this geographic spread, this level of organization, a culture that had flourished for 600 or 700 years at its height, simply collapse? The answer involves climate, rivers, and the subtle environmental changes that can unmake even the most perfect cities. The disappearance, decline, and fall. Around 1900 BCE, the Indus Valley Civilization began to change. It wasn't a sudden collapse. No earthquake leveled all the cities in a day, no plague killed everyone in a year, no conquering army swept through burning and destroying. Instead, what happened was something more gradual and, in some ways, more mysterious. The great cities were abandoned. The uniformity dissolved. The writing disappeared. The long-distance trade networks broke down. Population centers shifted eastward and southward. A sophisticated urban civilization transformed into something else. Rural, decentralized, disconnected. By 1300 BCE, the mature Harappan civilization was gone. What happened? For decades, the dominant theory was invasion. Mortimer Wheeler and other mid-20th century scholars pointed to Indo-Aryan peoples migrating into the region, bringing new languages and cultures, conquering and destroying the existing civilization. The Rig Veda's verses about the god Indra destroying fortresses seem to describe historical events. The skeletal evidence from Mohenjo-daro seemed to show massacre victims. But as we discussed earlier, this invasion theory has been largely abandoned. The skeletal evidence doesn't support sudden massacre. The genetic evidence shows population mixing rather than replacement. The chronology doesn't work. Indo-Aryan migrations likely occurred during or after Harappan decline, not as its cause. So if not invasion, what? The answer appears to be environmental change, specifically, a shift in climate patterns that disrupted the foundations of Harappan civilization. Multiple lines of evidence point to significant climate change affecting the region between 2200 and 1800 BCE. This period saw weakening of the monsoon systems that had provided reliable seasonal rains. The summer monsoons became less predictable, less intense. Droughts became more common and severe. Even more significantly, the river systems changed. The Gagar-Hakra river system, which many scholars identify with the ancient Sarasvati River mentioned in Vedic texts, was once a major perennial river supporting numerous Harappan settlements along its course. Geological and archaeological evidence shows this river began to dry up during the mature Harappan period. Why did it dry? The most likely explanation involves tectonic activity and river capture. The Sutlej and Yamuna rivers, which once fed into the Gagar-Hakra system, shifted course, possibly due to tectonic uplift in the region or natural river migration. Deprived of its major tributaries, the Gagar-Hakra diminished to a seasonal stream, then dried completely in many sections. You can still see the ghost of this river from space, a dark line snaking across the Thar Desert where deeper moisture and different vegetation mark the ancient channel. Archaeological surveys along this paleo channel have identified hundreds of Harappan sites, testimony to the river's importance. When the river died, the settlements it supported became unsustainable. Imagine living in a city along the Gagar-Hakra around 1900 BCE. Your grandparents remembered when the river flowed strong and full every year. Your parents noticed it was less reliable. Some years the floods came late or not as high. In your lifetime the change accelerates. The river that once sustained your fields and filled your wells now barely flows. Crops fail more often. Wells run dry. What do? You adapt. You dig deeper wells. You change your agricultural practices. You pray to your gods and perform rituals. But if the environment continues to deteriorate, eventually you have to make a harder choice. Move or die. And that's what the archaeological record shows. Beginning around 1900 BCE, there's a population shift. The great cities of the Indus Plains begin to be abandoned. Not all at once, it's a gradual process over generations. But the trend is clear. People are leaving. Where do they go? Eastward and southward, toward regions with more reliable water sources. The Ganges-Yamuna river system begins to see increased settlement. Gujarat and the Deccan Plateau show evidence of new populations with Harappan cultural influences. But something crucial changes. The urban civilization collapses. The new settlements are smaller, rural, scattered. The careful urban planning disappears. The standardization vanishes. Different regions develop distinct local cultures. The writing system falls out of use, or at least no one writes on durable materials anymore. This period, called Late Harappan or Post-Urban Harappan, shows clear cultural continuity with the mature period in some ways. Pottery styles evolve from earlier forms. Some craft traditions continue, but the complexity is gone. The long-distance trade networks have broken down. The cities are empty. The evidence from the cities themselves is telling. There's no sign of catastrophic destruction. Buildings weren't burned en masse. Valuables weren't hastily abandoned. Instead, we see gradual deterioration. Houses falling into disrepair as fewer people remain to maintain them. Wind-blown sand and dust accumulating in streets. Wells silting up. The infrastructure of urban life slowly failing as the population dwindles. At Mohenjo-daro, there's evidence of attempts to adapt. Later occupants built cruder structures on top of the earlier city, reusing bricks from older buildings. The careful planning breaks down, houses built at odd angles blocking former streets, ignoring the drainage systems. It's the archaeological signature of a society in decline, no longer able to maintain the standards of its predecessors. But decline doesn't mean everyone died or left. Some areas remained occupied, just at lower population levels and with simpler lifestyles. The transformation was from urban to rural, from complex to simple, from integrated to fragmented. The climate change and river shifts weren't the only environmental factors. Evidence suggests other stresses. Deforestation. The Harappans needed enormous amounts of wood fuel for brick firing, metalworking, and other industries. Centuries of exploitation may have stripped the landscape of trees, leading to soil erosion, reduced rainfall retention, and environmental degradation. Agricultural stress. Intensive farming without adequate fallow periods or crop rotation could have depleted soils. Salinity from irrigation might have reduced productivity. The same agricultural systems that supported large populations for centuries might have been undermining their own foundations. Flooding. Paradoxically, while some areas suffered from river desiccation, others experienced catastrophic floods. There's evidence of major flood events at Mohenjo-daro, with thick layers of sediment suggesting the city was repeatedly inundated. These floods might have been a consequence of environmental changes. Deforested landscapes couldn't absorb heavy rains, leading to destructive runoff. These factors likely reinforced each other in a negative feedback loop. Climate change weakened the monsoons and shifted rivers. This reduced agricultural productivity, forcing people to exploit remaining resources more intensively. Deforestation made flooding worse and reduced soil quality. Flooding disrupted urban infrastructure and agriculture. Economic stress weakened trade networks. The breakdown of trade meant fewer resources to maintain the infrastructure. And so on, in a downward spiral. The Harappan civilization wasn't killed by a single catastrophic event. It was gradually undermined by environmental changes it couldn't adapt to while maintaining its urban complexity. This pattern is familiar from other civilization collapses. The Maya in Mesoamerica faced similar challenges: climate change, environmental degradation, and the breakdown of systems that had worked for centuries until they didn't. The Bronze Age collapse around 1200 BCE in the eastern Mediterranean involved multiple interconnected factors rather than a single cause. Complex civilizations are, paradoxically, fragile. They depend on many systems working together. Agriculture producing surplus, trade networks distributing goods, infrastructure maintaining health and commerce, social organization coordinating activities. Break enough of these links and the whole structure can fail. By 1300 BCE, the mature Harappan civilization was definitively over. What remained were regional cultures showing Harappan influences but distinctly different. Cemetery-age culture in Punjab, characterized by different pottery styles and burial practices. Jukar culture in Sindh. Rangpur culture in Gujarat. Each region developed its own trajectory. The uniformity that had been the Harappan civilization's hallmark became diversity. The cities that had been maintained for centuries became ruins and quarries for later building materials. The script that had marked countless seals and objects was forgotten. But, and this is crucial, the people didn't vanish. The genetic evidence is clear. Modern South Asian populations carry Harappan ancestry. The people didn't die out or disappear. They changed their lifestyle, moved to new areas, mixed with incoming populations, adapted to new conditions. Culture can die while people survive. Languages can be lost while speakers continue. Cities can be abandoned while life goes on in villages. Some areas show continuous occupation from Harappan times through later periods, with gradual cultural evolution rather than sudden replacement. The knowledge the Harappans possessed, agricultural techniques, craft skills, architectural principles, didn't entirely disappear. Some was preserved, modified, and passed down. But the specific form of civilization they had created, the urban planning, the standardization, the writing system, the long-distance trade networks, the distinctive Harappan identity, that was lost. Over the following centuries, new cultures arose in the region. Indo-Aryan-speaking peoples, likely originating from the Central Asian steppes, migrated into northwest India, bringing new languages, religious practices, and social structures. They mixed with existing populations, including Harappan descendants. The Vedic culture that emerged from these interactions would eventually produce the classical Indian civilizations we know from history. But it was different from what the Harappans had built. The Vedas speak of cattle herding, horse-drawn chariots, warrior culture, fire sacrifices, and a very different social organization from what the archaeological evidence shows for the Harappans. Some scholars see continuities, the bathing practices, certain symbols, perhaps some religious concepts. Others emphasize the discontinuities, the writing system lost, the urban planning forgotten, the craft traditions transformed beyond recognition. Both are probably right. Culture is complex. Some elements persisted while others were lost. The South Asian civilization that emerged from the post-Harappan period was neither purely Harappan nor purely Indo-Aryan but a synthesis. Meanwhile, the great cities fell silent. Sand drifted through their perfect streets. Their sophisticated drainage systems clogged and crumbled. Their brick walls eroded. The Indus River changed course, leaving some sites far from water. Vegetation grew over the ruins. Centuries became millennia. The world forgot the Harappans existed. Local people knew there were old mounds, ancient bricks to be quarried for new construction. Folk traditions might have preserved vague memories of ancestral cities. But the specific knowledge of who built these places, what they believed, how they organized their remarkable civilization, all of that was lost. For over 3,000 years, the Indus Valley Civilization slept beneath the earth, its secrets buried with its cities, waiting for archaeologists to uncover them. And when they finally did, the mysteries we've explored in this documentary began to emerge from the dust. Legacy and rediscovery. The rediscovery of the Indus Valley Civilization begins with a peculiar detail: British railway construction in the 1850s. Engineers building the East Indian Railway needed ballast, the crushed stone and material that stabilizes railway tracks. In the Punjab, they found convenient sources: ancient brick mounds near settlements like Harappa. For years, workers quarried these ruins, crushing perfectly formed ancient bricks to provide foundations for the modern railroad that would help Britain exploit its colony. Unknowingly, they were destroying evidence of a civilization older than Rome. Some British officials noticed the unusual nature of these ruins. Alexander Cunningham, the first Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India, visited Harappa in 1856 and noted curious artifacts, including a seal with strange symbols. But he didn't recognize what he was seeing: the ruins of a previously unknown major civilization. It wasn't until the early 20th century that the truth began to emerge. In 1921, Indian archaeologist Daya Ram Sahni began systematic excavations at Harappa. Around the same time, R.D. Banerjee was working at Mohenjo-daro in Sindh. Both sites yielded remarkable findings: planned cities with grid layouts, sophisticated drainage systems, standardized bricks, and those mysterious seals with undeciphered writing. John Marshall, then Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India, recognized the significance. In 1924, he made a historic announcement: a new ancient civilization had been discovered in the Indus Valley, contemporary with ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. The discovery caused a sensation in archaeological circles. Here was a Bronze Age civilization previously unknown to history. No ancient texts had mentioned it. No classical writers had described it. Yet it had clearly been a major urban culture covering an enormous territory. The questions began immediately: who were these people? What language did they speak? Where did they come from? Where did they go? Nearly a century later, we're still asking those questions. The decades following the discovery saw extensive excavation and analysis. Mortimer Wheeler's work in the 1940s revealed more about Harappan urban planning and crafts, though his invasion theory proved incorrect. Indian archaeologists like B.B. Lal, S.R. Rao, and later scholars continued uncovering sites and refining our understanding. The discovery of Dholavira by J.P. Joshi and R.S. Bisht in the 1960s, though systematic excavation began later, revealed the civilization's sophisticated water management. Excavations at Rakhigarhi by Amrendra Nath and later Vasant Shinde have shown the site's enormous size and provided crucial DNA evidence. Modern technology has revolutionized Indus archaeology. Satellite imagery reveals ancient river courses and allows discovery of new sites without excavation. Ground-penetrating radar maps buried structures. DNA analysis provides genetic insights. Isotope studies of human and animal remains reveal diet and migration patterns. Computer modeling helps reconstruct climate and environment. We now know of over 1,400 Harappan sites, far more than the handful known in the 1920s. The civilization's extent is clearer: from Shorchagai in northern Afghanistan to Daimabad in Maharashtra, from the Iranian border to western Uttar Pradesh. But knowing where they were doesn't fully answer who they were. The script remains undeciphered. Modern computational methods and artificial intelligence have been applied to the problem, but the fundamental challenges remain: short inscriptions, unknown language, no bilingual texts. Some scholars are optimistic that eventually, perhaps through finding longer texts or developing better analytical methods, decipherment will succeed. Others are less hopeful, suggesting we may never know what the symbols mean. Debates continue on many fronts. Did they have kings? What were their religious beliefs? How did they maintain such uniformity? What exactly caused their decline? How much influenced later Indian civilization? These aren't merely academic questions. They have cultural and political dimensions in modern South Asia, where the Harappan civilization is claimed as heritage by multiple nations and interpreted through various ideological lenses. The partition of British India in 1947 divided Harappan sites among India, Pakistan, and, a few sites, Afghanistan. This political division complicates archaeological cooperation, though scholars from all countries continue to work on Harappan studies. Indian archaeologists have emphasized research at sites like Rakhigarhi, Dholavira, Kalibangan, and Lathau. Pakistani archaeologists continue work at Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and other sites in Sindh and Punjab. International collaborations bring together researchers from multiple countries. The sites themselves face conservation challenges. Mohenjo-daro has suffered from salt crystallization, erosion, and water damage. Despite being a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1980, preservation is difficult. The ancient bricks deteriorate when exposed to air and moisture. Rising water tables threaten buried structures. Tourism, while economically beneficial, creates physical stress on fragile ruins. Conservation efforts continue, but it's a race against time and environmental factors. Some scholars warn that without better preservation, important sites could be lost before they're fully excavated and studied. Meanwhile, public awareness of the Indus Valley Civilization has grown. It's taught in schools across South Asia. Museums in India, Pakistan, and worldwide display Harappan artifacts. Documentaries and books bring the civilization to wider audiences. Yet it remains less famous than ancient Egypt or the Roman Empire. Perhaps this is because the mysteries remain so deep, the unanswered questions so fundamental. It's harder to capture public imagination without knowing what the people called themselves, what language they spoke, what stories they told. But that mystery is also the civilization's peculiar power. The Harappans force us to question our assumptions about how civilizations work. They show us that urban sophistication, technological achievement, and social complexity can arise through different paths than the royal dynasties and conquest narratives we're familiar with from other ancient cultures. They demonstrate that there isn't one inevitable way to organize human society, even at large scales. The absence of monumental rulers' tombs and palaces isn't a failure. It's an alternative, one that worked successfully for centuries. And perhaps, though we must be careful not to overstate uncertain connections, some of their legacy persists in South Asian culture. The emphasis on bathing and purity, certain symbols, maybe even subtle influences in art, architecture, or social organization that have echoed down through the millennia in ways we can't definitively trace but can intuitively feel. The undeciphered script remains silent, but the ruins still speak of human ingenuity, sophisticated urban planning, successful adaptation to environment, and the mystery of how civilizations rise and fall. The Indus Valley Civilization built cities of remarkable perfection. They created urban infrastructure that wouldn't be matched for thousands of years. They developed standardized systems of weights, measures, and quality control without apparent centralized coercion. They traded across vast distances and maintained cultural unity across a territory larger than ancient Egypt. Then, when their environment changed, when the rivers shifted and the climate transformed, they couldn't sustain that complexity. The perfect cities were abandoned. The urban civilization dissolved. The writing was forgotten. But the people survived. They adapted. They moved. They transformed their culture and eventually became part of the rich tapestry of South Asian civilization that continues today. The Indus Valley Civilization reminds us that nothing is permanent. Even the most sophisticated systems can collapse when conditions change. Even the most carefully planned cities can become ruins. Even the most successful civilizations can be forgotten. But it also reminds us of human resilience. The Harappans faced environmental catastrophe and societal collapse, yet their descendants persisted. Culture transformed but life continued. And the story isn't over. Every year brings new discoveries, new excavations, new analyses using cutting-edge technology, new interpretations of old data, new scholars asking new questions. Perhaps one day someone will crack the code of the Indus script and the Harappans will finally speak to us directly in their own words. Perhaps new excavations will find the administrative archives or religious texts that explain their social organization. Perhaps future research will definitively answer the questions we've explored today. Or perhaps the mysteries will endure, the enigmas remain unsolved, the secrets stay buried. Either way, the Indus Valley Civilization has earned its place in human history, not just for what it achieved but for what it represents. A different path. An alternative vision. A civilization that succeeded magnificently, then vanished mysteriously, leaving behind ruins that still inspire wonder and questions that still challenge our understanding. The perfect cities are silent now. The sophisticated drainage systems are broken and clogged. The standardized bricks crumble slowly into dust. The seals with their mysterious symbols sit in museums, their messages still unread. But the mystery lives on. The enigma endures. And perhaps that's fitting. Perhaps civilizations that built without kings, that organized without obvious hierarchies, that achieved so much while remaining so humble in their material expressions, perhaps they deserve to keep some secrets. The Indus Valley Civilization, they built perfect cities. then they disappeared without a trace. But they left us with the greatest gift an ancient culture can offer: wonder. Thank you for joining me on this journey into one of archaeology's greatest mysteries. The Indus Valley Civilization challenges everything we think we know about ancient cultures, and I hope this documentary has given you a deeper appreciation for both their achievements and the puzzles they left behind. If you found this exploration of ancient enigmas fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into lost civilizations, forgotten cultures, and the mysteries of the ancient world. What's your theory? Why do you think the Indus Valley Civilization developed such unique characteristics? What do you believe caused their disappearance? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every one and I love hearing your perspectives and theories. If you enjoyed this, you might also like our documentaries on the mysterious sea peoples who ended the Bronze Age, the lost city of Catalhoyuk and the birth of urban life, or our exploration of the Indus Valley's contemporary, ancient Egypt's Middle Kingdom. For more content, behind-the-scenes information, and to join our community of history enthusiasts, follow us on social media. Links are in the description below. The past is never truly dead. It lives in the ruins we excavate, the artifacts we study, and the questions we keep asking. The Harappans may have vanished, but their story continues every time someone asks, how did they do it? Who were they really? And what can we learn from their rise and mysterious fall? Keep asking those questions. Keep seeking those answers. Keep wondering about the worlds that came before us. Because every civilization that rose and fell, succeeded and failed, built and collapsed, they're all part of our human story. They show us what we're capable of achieving and warn us of the fragility of even our greatest accomplishments. Until next time, keep exploring the past to understand the present.